When you get into whiskey, you start to realize very quickly that each whiskey presents its own aromas, its own flavors, its own texture, and the experience that you get as a drinker. Today, I want to share with you the 5 whiskeys that I believe best represent the 5 flavor profiles of whiskey as defined on the flavor tree by my friend First Fill Whiskey. Thank you guys for clicking on the video and joining me today. My name is Wade. If you are brand new here, this channel is all about single malt whiskey. Today, we are going to accept the challenge that was sent my way from another great friend of mine, Jeff at Jeff Whiskey. Thank you for passing it my way. So I'm going to give you the 5 whiskeys that I believe best represent each of the 5 flavor profiles. These profiles are fruit and floral, rich and spiced, wood and grain, heavy funk, peat and smoke. So the whiskeys that I have chosen today are ones that are affordable and are easily accessible in most markets and are great representations of these flavor profiles. So let's start now with the first profile being fruit and floral. This one is a great flavor profile that I would recommend as a great place to begin, because this is really what I would consider the foundational framework flavor profile, the quintessential single malt whiskey profile. If you think about a whiskey that's typically matured in an ex-bourbon barrel, you're going to get a lot of the distillate character. So the whiskey that I think best represents this flavor profile is the Glencadam 10. This whiskey gives you beautiful orchard fruits. You're getting pears and apples and juicy grapes, and you get a very light, perfumey type aroma to this whiskey. It's almost like walking through an orchard, this whiskey. At the same token, it's not so light a whiskey that it doesn't give you lots of body and depth and character at the same time. This whiskey is natural color, it is non-chill filtered, and it is bottled at 46% ABV. A great whiskey if you want to get a sense of what a floral and fruit profile is without influence from any other flavor profile. The next profile is the rich and spiced flavor profile. This one is one of my favorites. I love a good whiskey that has those aromas of the dried fruits, you know, the raisins and dates and figs, and think cinnamon and cloves, nutmeg, the spices, a Christmas cake, all of those decadent and rich flavors that typically imparted on a whiskey from maturation in ex-sherry casks or export casks. Now, the whiskey I've chosen for this flavor profile is one that is very easy for most people to find, and most people would probably know of this whiskey, and I am of course referencing the Glenallachie 12-year-old. Non-chill filtered, natural color, presented at 46% ABV. So if you are looking to understand those kind of dried fruit notes with a bit of spice and a little bit of caramels and toffees and that decadent single malt whiskey, the Glenallachie 12 is an excellent example of whiskey with this flavor profile. All right, that leads me into probably my favorite flavor profile, being peat and smoke. This one, well known, well loved, easy, accessible whiskey, of course from Islay, and it is the Ardbeg 10-year-old. The reason I've chosen this whiskey is, again, because it gives you absolutely the peat smoke. You're getting the medicinal notes, the saltiness, you're getting this zestiness, almost like citrus notes. There's a great baseline peat and smoke profile from a bourbon cask maturation that isn't influenced by sherry maturation as well. So I've chosen this because I really wanted to give the viewers a sense of a whiskey that gives you a foundational peat and smoke flavor profile. 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, natural color whiskey that is available just about anywhere. If you are looking to dip your toes into the waters of peat and smoke flavors, this is probably, quite possibly, the best place to begin. Okay, I am going to now go into the flavor profile of wood and grain. The only one on my list that isn't as affordable as the others, but still an easily accessible whiskey. These are those whiskeys that give you that sense of, obviously, the grains, the malt, think like mahogany desks, furniture polish, typically whiskeys that have had a little more maturation under their belt to allow more of the oak cask influence. The whiskey I have chosen, of course, is the GlenDronach 21-year-old, the Parliament. This whiskey is bottled at 48% ABV, is natural color, but cannot state that it is not chill filtered anymore. A great example of a whiskey that over time, as its maturation increases from the 12 to the 15 through to the 18 and then on to the 21-year-old, you really can start to see the influence and impact of the wood and grain flavor profile increasing and enhancing. If you are looking for a whiskey that really well represents the wood and grain flavor profile, then the GlenDronach 21 surely will please. And of course, that brings us to the final flavor profile, heavy funk. Most whiskey lovers, if you have a little bit of experience under your belt, will very much know that if you're looking for a whiskey that has a heavy funk flavor profile, you would naturally turn to whiskies coming from the Campbelltown region of Scotland. I have chosen something that isn't from Campbelltown because we know that typically Springbank and Glen Scotia and Glengyle aren't as easily accessible and are a little bit more expensive because they are so sought after. So the whiskey I have chosen is one from the Speyside region, and that is the Benromach 10-year-old. This whiskey presents you with diesel, machinery oil, this greasiness. You're getting the hay, those farmyard notes like barnyards, but you're also getting the underlying malt profile and a little bit of contrast and sweetness from light fruity notes and a hint of smoke as well. So all of those elements combined present a very delicious and heavy funk flavor profile on the Benromach 10. One that I think is accessible in many markets at a fair price point, and we are talking 43% ABV, we are talking natural color, but we are talking chill filtration. Now, these flavor profiles are a great starting point to begin at when you're looking to understand almost what I'd compare them to being like primary colors on a color chart. Now you can combine these flavor profiles. You'll start to see as you head down your whiskey journey pathway that you'll have a rich and spiced flavored whiskey that also has elements of peat and smoke, or you might have fruit and floral that also combines with wood and grain. So there's no hard and fast rule, but these are the great foundational starting points when you're looking to understand baseline flavor profiles across the whiskey spectrum. Now, if you haven't yet picked up the flavor tree from my friend First Fill, I've put a link in the description in this video. You can see here I have the flavor tree in the biggest size possible poster that Phil had on offer, and it's right beside my whiskey cabinet. So I too utilize the flavor profiles when I'm dissecting and understanding the whiskey I'm enjoying and going through the motions and experiencing and uncovering all the wonderful scents and flavors the whiskey has to offer. Given that this is a challenge, I would like to pass this on to someone who I think can bring some different perspective to the conversation, who has a heavy leaning and understanding into Japanese whiskey, and that is my good friend Mac at Kanpai Planet. So I am passing to you. I will love to see what you come up with and what your take is on the whiskeys that best represent these flavor profiles. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please make sure to do so. Please leave me a comment. Tell me if you have other whiskeys in mind that represent the flavor profiles for you. And until next time, enjoy your whiskey responsibly, and I'll catch you very soon on the next McIntyre's Malts.